on the 17th floor of the Sky Lounge, we are going to have a conversation about the democratic state of Africa. You'll be hearing from people from Sierra Leone, from Gabon, from Tanzania, from, every part, like Benin, 15 countries in Africa, and these men are gathering tonight to talk about what's going on. From Zambia, you know what, let me just don't call it because I don't want to miss. But it's going to be very interesting because we are looking at human rights, we are looking at good governance, we're also looking at different areas, the economy, sustainable development, infrastructure of Africa. And I am the host, Sia Matilda Banga. You'll be hearing from us and we're going to be live. Thank you very much, and I invite you inside to meet a couple of the guys who are here to start. So like I said, we're going to be discussing the democratic state of Africa, and I have with me here a few gentlemen that are part of this great group, and I call them great minds because I know they represent their countries very well. I'm going to let them just give 1 minute of what are your expectations tonight, your name, your country, and what are your expectations in 30 seconds.
Thank you. My name is Leonce. I'm from Rwanda. I live in Washington, D.C. I am here to have a discussion with fellow Africans to talk about Africa and the good future of our continent. Thank you.
My name is Elvis Kamba. I'm just visiting Washington, D.C. And I'm going to take this opportunity to discuss with my colleagues around here the future of Africa, the areas that we need to look at in order to have sustainable development. Thank you.
My name is Laston Msenga. I'm Zambian by nationality. I live in Maryland. I work in the District of Columbia. I'm happy to be here because this is one place where we're going to discuss important issues that would be able to lead Africa to the level it's supposed to be. And meeting with people with sharp minds will be able to sharpen everyone else. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Juve Lima. I'm originally from Benin and I live in the DC area. I'm here today to share ideas with my fellow African and discuss some issues about the continent and about the diaspora here in the US. Thank you.
My name is Matthew Mtale. Zambian by native. I live here in Maryland. We've come here to meet with other fellow Africans to discuss our infrastructure, education, to see a way forward for Africa. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jean-Claude. I'm from Gabon, and I'm here to discuss the future of Africa.
Thank you.
My name is Sadiq Abubakar. I am delighted. It's always an honor to meet minds that can teach you something new. I appreciate Africa in every way, and wherever I am, I'm always facing Africa, so this is the right place to be.
Thank you. We also have one more gentleman who just walked in.
Oh, my name is Mohamed Ba. I am proudly from Sierra Leone, and I'm here to network with my fellow Africans on how we can move Africa forward by building institutions.
Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. We will be, those are just a couple of people that have made the short introduction and the expectations of being here tonight. After a little bit, others will be joining us, and we will let you into our show tonight, The State of Africa. Thank you. All right. Hello, and welcome to This Time Africa TV. And of course, I'm your host, Sia Matilda Banga. Today, we are going to be discussing the democratic state of Africa, and we're going to be looking at sustainable development, education, human rights, good governance, democracy, and much, much more. As you know, I don't do this alone. I have with me in the house people that I call great minds, people from the diaspora, gentlemen that I believe that we can all rely on because of their knowledge and their expertise on the subjects that we are going to discuss tonight. As we open this great discussion, we're going to start with the importance of economic empowerment and sustainable development in Africa. And with me to have the conversation, I have with me, and if you can please announce yourself.
Juve Lima. I'm originally from Benin. and CEO for the African Diaspora United for Development.
My name is Mohamed Ba. I am originally from Sierra Leone, but I'm currently residing in Maryland. I have so many titles, but one of them, I'm the president of First Apple Inc., a money transfer conference that has existed since 1997, but we are in the money moving business, from the diaspora here to African countries. That's what I do. And actually in the community I have served as a president of the Fuller Progressive Union, and right now I'm serving the governor of the state of Maryland as a commissioner on African Affairs, linking resources from the states of Maryland to our people in the diaspora that lives in the state of Maryland.
My name is Sadiq Abubakar. I am the National Youth President of the United African Congress. My specialty is mechanical engineering, specifically artificial intelligence and robotics. I also serve in different capacities around the continent and here in the United States. I'm looking forward to a very great discussion. Thank you.
All right, why don't we start the ball rolling in this conversation? Well, as you all know, Africa's borders seem like it is coming down slowly. With the emergence of the ECO that has just been ratified, after 30 years of the birth or the conception of the idea that Africa should have, or West Africa should have at least one common denominator. Just recently in June of 2019, that has been passed, and it is believed that this should take effect no later than 2020. We're already in November of 2020. My question to you is, how is this going to help the economy? Is this, is it timely? Is 2020 feasible? What are the economic impacts that the ECO is going to have in Africa? Any one of you can take that. Benin, I see you're smiling, Juve, because Benin is the first person to, or one of the countries that have just have their own currency.
Right, yes. So I'm not an economist, but I do have an opinion about it. The feasible 2020 is right around the corner. It's a month away. And to launch a new currency, I believe there are some preparing to do. And preparing, including a lot of meetings, some political actions, some economic actions, and I haven't seen that happening yet, except for maybe one or two countries of the ECOWAS. I know that Benin just recently took a big step, and that step consisted of requesting all the fund from France, which has been the colony for a lot of francophone countries in Africa. And we don't know how that will go yet, because launching the ECO in 2020 will also depend on that. Them bringing the money here back to the continent, to our new reserve that we'll create, and go from there. But up to this point, none of the country has requested the money or has gotten the money back, because according to a colonial treaty, all the countries have to leave 85% of their national budget.
Now it's reduced to 65.
65.
So 65% of the budget with France, to the National Bank of France. Why? I don't know. For what purpose? We don't know. But all we know is that France is using it, investing it, and becoming richer and richer.
All right, I just wanted to add before we go further that the CFA actually represents Colonies Françaises Africaines.
Yes.
That's colonizing French colonizing Africa.
French colony of Africa.
Of France.
What's that?
Former colonies of
Former colonies of France.
Yeah.
So that's the name of the money, because we've been hearing CFA. I just wanted our viewers and also the people who are listening to understand the meaning and the reason why I think the colony in that name is about to drop and is dropping. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Bamba.
Thank you very much. One of the questions is if it is feasible. As my previous colleague have just said about how the France CFA works, it's just a symbol of neo-colonialism, that we are actually paying France to colonizing us and having our money in there, and they're using it to grow, and they dictate the currency exchange. Actually, I do money to Francophone countries. But for the correction, it's not all, the whole of Africa is actually going for the ECO. It's only the 16 West African countries called the ECO. So I wanted just to get a correction. As my previous colleague just said, one of the problems, the preparation is not there. The central bank of the CFA fund is in Senegal, and now the French people are holding Senegal to hostage, try to give them all kind of money to sabotage the movement of this currency to France CFA. As you know, we have 15 or 16 West African countries, and 8 of them are actually CFA countries. You know, Cape Verde and Guinea-Bissau, they are under the Portuguese, and 5 of them are under the English speaking. It is a very good idea. It will help Africa move goods in between ourselves without the effect of exchanging. Let me just give an example. I am Sierra Leone. I want to move to Dakar. I have to go get either franc CFA or pound sterling or dollars. And guess what? When I exchange, I lose money. And I have to travel to Senegal and I have to re-exchange it. I lose money in that process. So how can the flow of goods be possible between these two countries? So those are the hindrances. And the French like it. And for it to work, it has to take a big fist from the African countries to stand by what they said, especially a big brother like Nigeria, to make sure that they're actually really ready for it, because they have the production facility to be able to move goods and services from their country to other part of Africa. If not, it's going to be like tough. I don't think 2020 is feasible because of the preparation is not there, as I say.
All right, we're going to hear from Sadiq.
Thank you very much. I want to put this in a little different perspective. This is how the relationship between the CFA using countries and France is. So yearly, France is taking about $500 billion out of all these countries. Then it reinvests it. For every $14 billion it invests, it gets back $3 billion. So do the mathematics. Meaning annually, they're taking over $1 trillion out of Africa. That is not the worst thing. Then Macron had the guts to turn around and look at Africa and say they are poor because they are giving birth to too many children. That is not where it ends. I'm not sure of his name, but one of the princes from Buckingham said the population of Africa is becoming a nuisance and they have to curtail it. Existential threat to Africans. So if we understand it properly, we understand that we are actually allowing a former colony to dictate how much money we can keep in our pockets, whilst it is making trillions of dollars out of us and calling us poor. Okay, let's end that conversation over there. We don't want to be poor anymore. All we're saying is, give us back what you've taken from us. And let's end that relationship. We can redevelop or renegotiate our relationship differently, moving on. But for the time being, give us back what you've taken from us.
Well, I think also, let me add also that, not only that, so whenever a country that uses a CFA currency wants money, they have to pay France to print that money before it is sent back to that country. I think and this has been going on for how many years? Wake up, Africa.
65.
Wake up, Africa.
Let's even add to it. When you request for that money, you are borrowing it from France, which is your money, but you're borrowing it at an interest rate, killing interest rate. So you end up owing France for borrowing your own money from them.
Do you all think this is, and this anybody can answer this, but do you think this was a way of having pure dominance of Africa by using the currency, our money?
I could probably say a few things about it.
Okay.
So my name is Jean-Claude, I'm from Gabon. So in 1945, France came out of war, an impoverished country. And their currency was actually very low. So they had to find a way to survive. When France was under the Germany or Hitler occupancy, the Nazi actually put a similar currency in France so that France would not be able to use their own money. They would have to use the Dutch mark. So when France was liberated, they kind of thought, hey, this was actually a great idea. Maybe we should do the same things with these particular colonies, right? But again, when it came out of the Bretton Woods agreement, the currency of France was actually very low. So there was no way they would have survived. So France had to find a way to survive. So in 1945, December 26th, that's when they established the CFA. Again, there's two regions. You have West Africa, you have Central Africa. Central Africa, you have 6 countries. West Africa, you have 8 countries. The Minister of Finance back then says, we're doing this as a selfless gesture to help Africa. But what is so interesting is those two regions, even though they have CFA, they cannot exchange. You cannot take a CFA from Ivory Coast and use it in Gabon. So if you're doing this as a selfless gesture, what would you prevent these regions to actually trade? They needed to have a bigger voice in the international arena. So they used those countries, 18, to actually show forth that, even though we were under occupancy of Germany, we're strong and we could actually have a bigger voice at the UN in some of the international meetings. So, it was really a Machiavellical idea for them to do this. Because if I sell you something at $1, now it's 65%. It used to be 85% that France would keep. So when you actually do your production analysis, you say, if I sell this at $1, I have 10 cents of profit. Now imagine, if you're selling at $1, all you're getting back is either 35, or back then it used to be 15%. No way any local company, any local farmers could actually sustain and grow. And this is why most of these Francophone countries have had a hard time competing when it comes to trade.
All right, thank you very much. I don't know if somebody wants to add to that trade. Yes.
The brother was touching on a very important point, and I'm going to just divide a little bit also, because you have to put certain things into historical context to be able to face a proper analysis. France could not have done what it did without the complicit intervention of the Western powers, or the so-called Allied powers. If you look it further, what happened in Benin, you know, the death of Olympio, was as a result of his decision to dissociate from the CFA. And where was he killed? He was killed right in the house of the American ambassador, who invited him to come there, hoping that his life would be secure. So there is that complicity, that historical complicity that we need to also put into perspective. But I think that the approach that West Africa is taking, British West Africa, Portuguese West Africa, is going to help give strength to French West Africa so that they will be able to at least win themselves from this historical injustice.
Thank you very much. What I wanted to add before you say something, Mr. Ba, is that people have said that they've tried to make like a justification that the CFA was strong because it was linked to the euro, and now that the countries are trying to have their independence of having their own currency, there may be instability. Is that justification justified?
Let's have a conversation about the value of currencies. The intersubjective value of currency is put in the minds of people. The dollar bill is just a dollar bill, but it can be equivalent to 5.59 of a cedi. Why? Because intersubjective value has been placed on the dollar. What is the commodity backing the value of the dollar? Who can tell me? Gold. But where is the gold?
Where does gold come from?
Gold. Now, the majority of the world's gold is coming from Africa. Do you know that America does not accept gold from Africa?
I didn't know that. That's
Good.
why we're having this conversation.
So, where is the gold that America is using to back the dollar? As a matter of fact, if you dig deep into that question, it is not existing. They have been scared about the possibility that the dollar is going to suffer a very huge inflation because Russia is dumping the dollar as a reserve currency, China is dumping the dollar as a reserve currency, and they're going to bring back all the billions and trillions of dollars that they have in reserve back to the United States. Today, between January and today, the gold value has moved from $30,000, $35,000 per kg to $55,000 today. Why? Because the Russians are buying, the Chinese are buying, and they are converting all their reserves into gold. Now, this is where the intersubjective value of currency comes in. Let's use our gold reserves, or if we don't have, let's create our gold reserves. There is an issue with our mining sector because the colonizers took concession of the lands for 99 years.
Yes.
And they have interchanged hands with their own colleagues so that for every land that is a mining site, someone takes over after maybe 15, 20 years, and then there is a new concession that extends the hold of the land for another 99 years. What we need to do is intelligently break that bond and start afresh. And we can do that.
And we can do that. Mr. Ba, I know that you are in the monetary exchange business and the First Apple. What are your thoughts about the economic stability as far as it relates to the CFA and us owning our own currency?
Before we go to that, I just want to remind you that one of the only survivors of the French people for deviating from the CFA was the great Sékou Touré. He said, yes,
President of Guinea.
Former President of Guinea. He deviated that I need my freedom, I need to control my destiny, and he was the only one that survived. And I think Alhaji Ahmad Wahijo in Cameroon too wanted to do similar stuff. They found out that his second guy is weak, Paul Biya. They took him to France and assassinated him. And since Paul Biya is there 40 years now, right? Guess what? He's been over the one as a puppet. He's still there. And now they have another puppet again now called Alpha Condé, doing what he wants. And he's doing what the French people want. And now they are killing people in the UK. So the stability is, I think, as my former colleague have just said, we need to establish a reserve bank inside Africa, not an African development bank. African development is connected with the IMF, it's not the same system, trying to let you money you cannot afford, and make sure they choke it to the point that you cannot pay your mortgage, and they take whatever they have cost. So what we're going to do, Africa need to establish a foreign reserve by themselves, and put gold to back their currencies, and moving forward, let's control our economic and our financial principle through our governance, not by somebody in the Federal Reserve determining the money you send to China to buy your goods. It has to be in dollars. I hope Gaddafi had that dream, but I don't know what happened. Let's leave that alone for now.
Let's leave that. I want us to, we have 5 minutes more, believe it or not, we're almost doing 30 minutes on this one subject. But I have 2 questions or things that I want us to discuss. First of all, do you think that the African leaders, the 8 African leaders or more that have said, okay, we are backing out, do you think they'll be coerced? Do you think they'll be used again to fall as puppets to France and to other world powers? That's number 1. I know they backed out, but I don't know. Then number 2, somebody said Nigeria is the big brother. Is Nigeria also going to be the little mini France?
So the thing is that beyond the fact that we just lay some fact, but the truth is that we ourselves really will have to want it. And to want it, one thing it needs to show by start taking some precaution, start laying some foundation, streamlining our financial practices, our thinking. And for the countries who have not done anything yet, I mean, nobody knows why they haven't done anything yet. There are so many ways to get to someone. It could be money, it could be blackmail, who knows? And knowing our African presidents, the selfishness can cause them not to proceed with it. Because you have to remember, Ghana and Nigeria are part of the ECOWAS, and they are more advanced than most countries in the West Africa. So instead of looking up to them and maybe following the footsteps and listen to maybe what insight and advice they will have so that the ECO can succeed, the other country will be looking for what's in it for us, what's in it for me, instead of thinking how can we all together make this successful. So I personally think that's what will be the hindrance for the ECO.
All right, so Sadiq, let's see, because we're going to wrap up. We have 2 minutes. You want to say something?
Yes.
All right. So, go ahead.
Say thing.
I think this is a very good question. From the point of view of any economist or business person, it makes sense to actually have a common currency. But what you need to understand is France has been at this since 1945. So they have their ways. All of these countries, those 14 countries, have a central bank. The central bank has about 5 people that actually makes part of the board of directors. In one of the secret agreement that they have is among those 5 directors, there has to be a French citizen who's always there and knowing what's happening, and of course relaying the information back to Mother France, if you want to call it that way. Also, France makes sure that they have the military bases in some of these countries. We're looking at Senegal, Chad, Ivory Coast, Gabon. they're making sure that their interests are protected. Today, things are a little bit different because things are out there. The media and events like what you're doing are bringing up to a lot of people these particular injustices that's been going on. Yes, Nigeria has a role to play, and we do believe that Nigeria will actually play its role very well. Those 14 countries, one thing that kind of shocked us a few years ago, the former president of France, Sarkozy, had visited, I think it was Burkina Faso, and some of the students asked me questions about the currency, and it was so humiliating that he said, I don't think you guys understand how currency works. You're talking to students who are in universities. They don't understand how currency works. But it's almost like babysitting those 14 countries as if they had, over the 50 years of independence, not produced people intelligent enough to be able to manage the currency.
Thank you very much, Sadiq. And then one last question, and we will be done with this topic.
Thank you, my brother. I was going to touch on something of that sort, but you cannot look towards your enemy for a solution to the problem he's created for you.
He created, that's right.
And if you want to understand France, look at Haiti. If you want to understand France, look at Algeria. Interest never changes. Tactics might change. France is going to come back very strong against anybody who is going to stand in their way of achieving what they've set themselves to achieve on the continent of Africa. Look at what just happened to Americana. I'm not going to go deep into that.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about the AU and all of that,
Yes.
and I know that France is going to come in also. But
This is how they're going to do. The other thing also is that France is part of the NATO alliance. So America sees its own interest in France being able to raise funds to fund the activities of NATO. So go back to Europe. Who are the strong countries? You have France, you have Germany, you have Britain. The rest of them are just following. So would Europe sit down and watch one of its strong allies or members actually go down? No. So as we are thinking about moving away from France strategically, intelligently, we have to make sure we are putting the intelligence strategies in the backdrop so that in case things go south, we have a solution that will mitigate what France is going to do.
And I think this is where we all in the diaspora come in. And I hope that our governments, as they watch this on YouTube and other media, will begin to identify us in this room, because I know that we're making sense. For Africa to stand up again on its leg, we're already standing, but I think that Africa needs the diasporans to also participate in offices of government so that we can bring our knowledge of what we've learned here in the Western world back to Africa. I have one question to close this topic. Is it a risk worth taking? Is us owning our currency, backing away from friends and all of that, is it a risk worth taking? I don't know if this topic is going to end tonight. We may revisit it as we talk about also infrastructure. But is it a risk worth taking?
Even in poverty, liberty.
Even in poverty, liberty, I like that.
I just want to remind you guys, having gentlemen like this in Africa, having Elon Musk from Africa, you know that? And you that invented the Chevy Volts, You know, from Nigeria, they don't have a choice, they have to deal with what was changing. Let me just tell you, I'm working, right now, if you want a visa card printed for you, you have to be backed by Visa here, right? If you have our own central bank, we'll be able to, if we move our continent into a cashless society, or the cash is a very big threat to economic growth. Right now, I just come back from Sierra Leone trying to solve that solution. And I'm working with a Togolese guy who is actually will be taking over the cashless societies of Africa, which, whether it's Eco now or something else, and guess what? We will circumvent the French people. That's the secret. And we will do it, whether they want it or not, we are getting there. Because some people like this artificial intelligence, studying here, we will go back and contribute to a society. That's my last conclusion.
We will go back and contribute, yes. Chief?
If keeping the CFA matters to them, leaving the CFA matters to us. So it's a risk worth taking. France stands to lose his third place of richest country in Europe to go to the 15th if Africa were to leave the CFA.
And I think 15th is even a little bit in the middle. Let's see how we can get up to the first. And you know what? We're going to talk about something probably at the end of all of this discussion. Who makes up the G7? Is an African among the G7? Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be coming back right after this to discuss human rights and good governance. Thank you very much. Let's give it up to our panelist, Jude from Benin, Mr. Ba from Sierra Leone.